Last year, I made a pair of videos where I watched every Disney and Pixar animated movie ever made. And I figured, why not keep up with them, make this a yearly thing? So, here's a quick overview of all the Disney and Pixar movies that came out in the past year. Barring pandemic delays, both Disney Animation and Pixar generally release movies at a clip of one per year these days. So, we've got a small collection of new movies to add to the list from 2022. And 2021, since I made the original videos in October. Which means that, of course, I have to start with Encanto. This movie didn't do super well in the theaters, but it exploded in popularity when it came to Disney+. I'm not as in love with it as everyone else seems to be, but that's probably because I come to movies primarily for a good story, a good plot. And the main draw of Encanto is obviously the music. Lin-Manuel Miranda returns to write his second Disney soundtrack since Moana, and it's really blown up. It's worth checking out just for that. Then, Disney's big animated release for 2022 was Strange World. This movie flopped pretty hard. It got really screwed in the marketing. Disney barely advertised it, and the advertising it did get barely explained what it was about. So I'm going to do a full elevator pitch for anyone who doesn't know anything about this thing. It's a fantasy movie about a group of people who live in a world surrounded by unclimbable mountains. The main character is a guy who just wants to settle down and stay home where it's quiet and safe. But he's forced to go on an expedition to save his home by exploring a newly discovered world underneath his, that looks like this. It's alright, nothing special, a little formulaic, but it was fun. And there are actual gay characters who matter to the plot for once. This is something I've talked about in the past, but Disney has been really reluctant to put gay characters in anything more than a scene or two. And this is their first animated kids movie where they're front and center, and that's awesome. Movie, meh. Gay representation, great. Moving on to Pixar, their first release of the year was Turning Red, about a tween girl who can turn into a giant red panda. I thought it was great. The whole mother-daughter story hits really hard, and it feels like it succeeds in a lot of the ways that Brave failed. Plus, this is probably the most realistic depiction of tween characters I've seen in any piece of media ever. It's about average for a Pixar movie, which means it's way above average for all movies. And then comes Lightyear, which was the first Pixar movie to be released in theaters since before COVID. This movie is kinda weird. Obviously, it's tied to the character of Buzz Lightyear from Toy Story. The whole idea behind it is that it's the movie within the Toy Story universe that inspired the toy. But the story of Lightyear doesn't seem to have a lot in common with what we learned from Toy Buzz and Toy Story. I don't want to spoil it too much, but the events of this movie don't sync up with Toy Story canon very well. Or at all. I am not sure how to feel about this. On one hand, who freaking cares if the Toy Story movies have airtight continuity? I appreciate a movie that isn't tied down by canon and can do its own thing. But on the other hand, that means that this is basically an original story that slapped Buzz Lightyear on it purely for branding purposes. So people would go, ooh, that's the thing I like, I'm gonna pay money to see it. Which feels scummy. But let's set that aside for a moment. Let me judge the movie on its own terms. It's fine. It's not bad, it's just, everything about it is just adequate. Not up to Pixar's usual high standards. The animation is fine, the characters are fine, the action is fine, the story is fine. The big thing that really holds it back for me is that the story implies this huge and complex world, but this 100-minute kids movie doesn't have enough time to develop it. So everything ends up feeling rushed and underwhelming. The writing is also missing those classic Pixar feels. It has a pretty heavy-handed theme about trusting others to help you and forgiving yourself for mistakes that's not handled with the same finesse and emotional impact as, say, The Incredibles, or even Cars. So I was entertained the whole way through, but it didn't leave much of an impact on me. That's it for this year. Coming up in 2023, Pixar is releasing Elemental in June. It'll be about a world full of earth, air, fire, and water creatures. The next Walt Disney Studios movie will be called Wish. We don't know that much about it. It's releasing in November, and the story will be about wishing on a star somehow. It'll also serve as Disney's 100th anniversary celebration. Yeah, wow, Disney is 100 years old. I would describe 2022 as a pretty subpar year for Disney movies. We'll see if next year is any better.
What is that sound? Is he licking the switch? Legend, stop licking the switch. Legend, stop. Legend, stop.